And as a link between past and future of the lapidarists, I leave the floor to Justin Prim to introduce his meeting now.
Hello. So far, we've seen a lot of jewelry, we've seen some automatons, but I'm here representing a different part of the gem trade, which is the lapidary side, the gem cutting side. So today I want to talk about lost arts lapidary. I'm Justin Prim. I'm an American cutter and also a chronicler of gem cutting history. I am also a gem cutting teacher, and during the lockdown I wrote my first book, which is The Secret Teachings of Gem Cutting. And for almost a decade now I've been traveling around the world, meeting gem cutters, studying under them, documenting what they do, and trying to understand how gem cutting works all over the world. And today I'd like to talk to you about this art form that is becoming rare and in some places is on the verge of becoming extinct. So I would like to propose that manipulating stone is the most human thing that we can do. We've been manipulating stones longer than we've been human. This stone tool was made by our ancient ancestors over 300 million years ago. But we're not here to talk about tools, we're here to talk about beauty and adornment. The art of modifying natural materials to make jewelry is older than farming. Other than hunting, cutting, polishing, and drilling stones is probably the thing that we've been doing the longest as a species. For at least 30,000 years, humans have been making gemstone jewelry. Sometimes these jewels are talismanic, like this 4,000-plus-year-old engraved jet necklace. Sometimes they're religious, like this 3,800-year-old piece from Egypt. Through these tens of thousands of years, we've been learning and adding to our skill sets as lapidaries. By the beginning of the Bronze Age, we'd figured out cabochons. By the end of the medieval period, we were writing extensive tomes about stones, their properties, and how to polish them. By the Renaissance, we learned how to make flat facets, which started us down a totally new design path. New technology had to be developed in order to make these new designs. The hand-crank lapidary bench that you can see here would have been a huge improvement over the old ways of cutting stones. And when the technology gets better, of course, the designs get more complicated, like we see in this 16th century step-cut emerald. In the 17th century, we developed mechanical devices to help us do even more precise cutting work. And of course, as soon as these new machines become widespread, new faceting patterns begin to be developed, like the rose cut that we can see at the top of this incredible emerald vessel. In the 19th century, new machines were invented in France that allowed gem cutting to be done faster and more accurately, allowing faceted stones to become a more common commodity instead of the highly exclusive and expensive symbol of divinity that they once were. Now, some people in the gem trade just see gem cutting as a small part of a larger chain of manufacturing in the gemstone industry, but I would argue that gemstone cutting is the heart that the gem and jewelry trade revolve around. Without the gem cutter, gemstones can't be used in jewelry, and without gemstone jewelry, there isn't much jewelry left to choose from. To see a little bit of evidence of this, we can look at some of the biggest names of the brands that we follow and are inspired by and see what they're pushing, see what they're advertising in their social media today. From one country to another, from one jeweler to another, big or small, colored stones and diamonds is the focal point, is the center point. Of course, we need the metals, we need the precious gold and silver, but without the colored stones, what are we holding together? And without the gemstone cutter, we don't have the colored stones to put into the jewelry. So from the 19th century, faceting technology spread all around the world. Machines that were developed only 35 kilometers from where I'm sitting today are now powering almost every major gem cutting hub in the world. And until recently, the lapidary arts were a viable career choice in Europe. Young people were being trained in schools and through apprenticeships. But then something changed. The world changed, maybe. So let's look at some numbers really quick. France has been cutting gems as an industry for over 800 years. France has literally changed the world history of gem cutting several times. 100 years ago, there were 8,000 gem cutters producing material for the Parisian jewelry industry and for Geneva's watch industry. Today, things have changed. We've gone from 8,000 to less than 100 cutters in the whole country. Cutting houses have told me that the National Apprenticeship Program in France has become obsolete, and only a few of the houses will take on gem cutting apprentices these days. In Germany, we see a similar story, a gem cutting hub with a long tradition as professional lapidaries who invented technology that influenced gem cutting all over Europe. They helped change the gem cutting narrative in many countries around the world, but today, something has changed. I've been told that there are less than 100 cutters in Germany today, though we still see some younger cutters thanks to a nationally supported apprenticeship program. In the Czech Republic, famous for its garnets and for its cutting, we see another similar story with a long history and innovations that have affected many parts of the world. And sadly, we see the same change. The Czech Republic has the last surviving lapidary trade school in Europe, but despite this, their industry boasts less than 30 working cutters today. England, one of the major gem cutting hubs of Europe, has seen a similar story. They've absorbed much of the wisdom of France, Germany, the Czech Republic. They've used it, they've exported it, and today there are less than 30 professional gemstone cutters on the whole island, and only 4 of them are under the age of 40 years old. In Geneva, the tradition of gem cutting is not as old as some of its neighbors, but it still has a long history in cutting stones. Switzerland invented its own technology for cutting small but perfect stones for the watch industry, which it has exported to a few other countries. Today we see an industry in its death throes, with only a few workshops and less than 20 cutters, partially due to the fact that the National Apprenticeship Program ended in 2011. So I think we can see a trend here, and maybe some of you are thinking the reason why the European gemstone trade has declined is because Asia has taken over all of the gemstone cutting work. This is partially true, but I've spent the last 6 years living in Asia and I've witnessed the same trend. Thailand is 10 years away from a fatal crisis in the lapidary trade. No new cutters are being trained, and many of the old cutters are reaching retirement age. In India, senior cutters are becoming Uber drivers to make more money, and young people don't want to learn this trade. In Sri Lanka, there are a lot of skilled younger and senior cutters with modern technology, though it sometimes can be difficult to get the stones in and out of the country. And in China, where labor prices are the lowest, the cutting industry is still young. Though mainland China has been carving jade for thousands of years, they've been faceting stones for less than 30 years, and their technology is lacking. We also see a push towards automatic cutting, machine cutting, but with its low yields, it's unlikely to be appealing for high-end materials. So everywhere that I've been in the last year, whether it's France, America, Thailand, or England, I've heard the same thing. We need more local gem cutters. So I'll finish this presentation with a question. How can we revitalize the lapidary industry? Here's just a few talking points. Train more gem cutters locally. We need more gem cutters in all of the jewelry hubs around the world to do repairs and recuts and all of the things that the local jewelers need. We need to work with the local governments to reinstitute apprenticeship support programs, because without help from the government, gem cutting houses cannot afford to pay apprenticeship wages while they're not producing any materials. We need to encourage the purchasing of local handmade goods like gems and jewelry. If more people want to buy locally made goods, then the demand for locally made artisans increases. We need to keep gem cutting local. We need to not send all of our gem cutting to Thailand, to Asia, to India. We need to keep it locally, whether that's in Geneva for the watch industry, in Paris for the Parisian industry, in London for the hat and garden industry. We need gem cutters to be in all those places. We need competitive salaries for lapidaries, because if you've spent 5 or 6 years doing an apprenticeship, you'd like to make more money than the grocery store clerk. And finally, we need to make gem cutting attractive. If we want young people to join, they need to know what it is. They need to be interested to do something with their hands, to do something creative, to do something meaningful, to be a part of something. So we need to let the young people know that this is a possibility. Of course, there's so much more to say about this process, but that's a conversation for another day or maybe another afternoon. If you'd like to see gem cutting lapidary demonstrated in GemGeneve, Victoria and I are going to be over in the Villa des Arts Pedu, and we're going to be demonstrating faceting on the Swiss-made Bunter machine, recutting some stones. And if you're interested in the book, I'm going to be over at the Lido Books booth tomorrow doing book signing. So thank you to GemGeneve, thank you to all you guys for being here, and good luck with all your lapidary endeavors.